Atul, and really excited to be bringing you another live stream on this rather hot and sunny day in England and London, at least where I am. So yeah, I'm joined by two two teachers of maths, and we'll just have a very quick round of introduction. So yeah, would you like to go, Stuart, and then Sarah?
Hi, Atul, thank you. Thanks very much. So my name is Stuart Welsh. I've been teaching maths for 15 years. Most of my career I was spent in Scotland, where I did 6 years as head of department. Also had an additional role as a research lead. And then I moved to Spain last year. So I've just completed my first year working in an international school here in sunny Spain.
So my name's Sarah Muldoon. I am just in my first year of teaching in Fraserburgh Academy, which is in the northeast of Scotland. Not as sunny as Spain, but today it is very warm.
Brilliant. So I think you might be beating us on the sunniness then, Stuart. So yeah, it's basically this. I think we were in touch on Twitter, Stuart, and you said you'd like to discuss a few issues. Also, I should add, yeah, we were originally going to have John Winter with us, who couldn't make it due to logistics, lots of work and family-related stuff. So yeah, we try and get everyone on, but it's not always logistically possible. And he's a very popular man as well. So yeah, the idea behind this one was to discuss some issues around newly qualified teachers who've been on a probation period or just finishing university. So I'm just gonna throw it out there as well straight away that I actually don't know much about this process at all, because I haven't actually formally trained as a teacher. I have gone straight from industry as a mechanical engineer, software engineer, into this one-on-one tutoring world, and subsequently taken professional development with LaSalle, Complete Maths, etc. So yeah, so I'm a bit of a novice to this. So if you could just explain for us, Stuart, how it works, the whole process works, and then we can take it from there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm familiar with the process north of the border in Scotland. I think it may be a little different south of the border. However, I suppose the experience is the same. And just before I go into those details, just to recap on something Atul said there, obviously the exceptional circumstances that the world has been facing over these past few months has impacted everybody in different ways. And I just had a thought about probationary teachers or teachers in training who would normally be in a school getting some really valuable time in front of students and learning from other colleagues, and that's been denied them because of the crisis. And so I thought now maybe more than ever would be a great time to just try and share maybe some tips and try and answer some questions and maybe give some advice to those who are going through that initial teacher education programme. Certainly north of the border, it's possible to do the 1 year PGDE. I think that's universal across the UK, and part of that experience is some time spent on placement in schools, and then in Scotland, if you get through that stage, you then get a probation year where you then get a place in a school provided for you by the government, and at the end of that probation year, provided everything's satisfactory, you make it onto newly qualified teacher status, and that's the experience that Sarah had. I think it's broadly similar in England as well. I wonder, Sarah, I just thought I would ask you there about your route into teaching, because we're kind of old friends now. I'm a bit older than you are, but we met a while ago. I wondered if you wanted to explain your journey.
So I wasn't one of the people who sort of had this calling from when they were younger and always knew they wanted to be a teacher. But I always knew that I loved maths. So I decided I would go to uni and I would do maths because I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. And then in my fourth year, I went to uni at Glasgow University. They give you an opportunity to do as your dissertation in your fourth year, a thing called the ambassador scheme, where you get placed in a school in Glasgow and work with them it was 1 day a week for about 3 or 4 months, and then you do a dissertation on the stuff you learned there. And I was placed at Stuart School. And after I did that, I realised that I wanted to be a teacher, really loved it. And I went on to do my PGDE at Glasgow. And I then ticked the box, and I'm now placed in the northeast of Scotland. Do my probation year, which I've just passed, and hopefully I'll be staying on at this school for a while.
Well, congratulations for passing, and also maybe just to explain what ticking the box means.
Oh yeah, sorry. So ticking the box means, so if you do your PGD, you get a 1-year contract anywhere in Scotland. You can either rate your council areas, I think 1 to 5, or you can do something called ticking the box. So ticking the box is when you give away, so you waiver where you want to go, and they will send you anywhere in Scotland. And you do get paid a little bit more for just getting sent to a random location. So places that are low on teachers, they will get the people that they need. So I was a box ticker.
And I think that the northeast of Scotland in particular is an area that they sometimes find it hard to attract teachers in for whatever reason. So well done for ticking the box. I wonder, has it been what you expected? I think the answer's probably got to be no, but what is as you expected? What was completely different? Just in a general sense, how has that whole experience been?
Well, I'd never known anyone who ticked the box or even had done the PGD in Scotland, so it all was kind of new to me. So I didn't really have any expectations, just thought I'll go along with whatever happens. But I really loved it. I think I probably thought I wouldn't have made as many friends at the school or have settled in so well at the school so quickly. And I think maybe because they're used to getting people who aren't from the area, they really take you in as a community as soon as you arrive. And that was something I was really quite surprised at, is how well I got on with everybody and how well you're treated, which is really nice.
That's fantastic. And that's probably lovely to hear for anybody who is perhaps waiting to start in a new school in August or September, because they generally are welcoming places. I think teachers are a special breed in many ways, and a lot of getting through and surviving teaching relies on being there for each other, and sharing the burden and talking to people. And I suppose that maybe leads us on to the first thing that I thought we could talk about, which is sort of loosely headed, self-care basically. And I think it's something that's so important, because by the time you gather up 15 years experience, there are some systems and procedures that you do that are habit that you don't need to think about, that come automatically, and that's a big advantage of experience. But when you're new, it's obviously everything is unfamiliar and you're doing everything for the first time, and it can be really easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself, either to get everything done, or to do everything to a really high standard, or to just to be as good as the teacher in the classroom next door to you, and that can really take its toll. So I suppose some of the things that I wanted to talk about, I mean, you have to just accept as a newly qualified or as a probationary teacher that you're going to be busy. You are going to be busy, and not just for your first year. Sorry, Sarah, but there's going to be a good few years of hard work ahead of you. But it does get easier as you develop your systems, your methods, and as you learn how to be maybe more efficient. So I think that's the first thing that you have to acknowledge. You are going to be busy, you are going to be tired, but you should still make a real conscious effort to make some time for yourself, whatever that might be. If you have a hobby or some sort of interest that you currently pursue, then don't give it up, really. There's always more school work to do. Your to-do list, you'll never cross off everything on your to-do list, because the thing just keeps growing faster than you can cross things off. So you have to try and find that balance. And I know everybody talks about work-life balance and its importance, but really, if you have a hobby, if you have something you do, if you go running in the mornings, if you play tennis and wherever, make sure you maintain that. I don't know what you think about that, Sarah. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you can get really bogged down on trying to make sure you're doing everything perfectly when you come out of your PGD with only like 18 weeks of actual classroom teaching time, and the ones this year will have even less than that. So you're not going to be the best at everything or know exactly how to do everything. And you can get kind of caught up in that at the very start, trying to make sure you're getting everything right every time. So I definitely feel like giving yourself some time that you like for stuff that you enjoy is really important. And I feel that not, well, can't do this always, but not bringing your work home. So I try to make a real conscious effort to work as hard as I could while I was in class or in school. And then as soon as it was time to go home, maybe late evening sometimes, go home and just forget about it and try to forget about it until you went back the next day, because it can really just take over and then you lose time for stuff that you enjoy, which isn't good because you'll just be way overwhelmed all of the time.
Yeah, I think that's really, really valid advice. Atul, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just just a couple of points. Forgot to mention earlier on. This is live on Twitter. It's your live stream. I am, I'm representing you out there on Twitter. So if you've got any questions for either Stuart or Sarah, just put them on the chat. I'll have a look. I'm keeping an eye on the Twitter chat on my Facebook page. So any question, and I'll put it to both of them. And again, yeah, like teaching. Any type of teaching, I do one-on-one teaching. It's such an intense. You're so invested in. I'm so invested in every single tutee of mine, and the communication with the parents. And I just cannot switch my brain off. Like I teach even on the weekends. Like I'm still like even on a Sunday. It's like I'm thinking about things. So with some great discipline, I've had to learn to actually just not just switch off on a Sunday, and I teach on Saturdays as well. And my hobby as being a musician, music to stuff, it's in some ways it's thanks to that we're doing this live streaming, because it's where I learned to do all that. But yeah, it's really, really important. I think it's such a great point, Stuart, that self-care, not just for newly qualified teachers, but for everyone at this stage. And in your case, Sarah, it'll be doubly difficult because that separation between home and work has just been, it's been taken away from all of us. But yeah, you are getting used to that separation, and that separation's gone. Yeah, okay, so I'll just wait for more questions to come and take it away.
Perfect. Well, the last thing I was going to say on self-care, and this sounds incredibly obvious, but you also need to take care of just your basic needs. And I know colleagues who'll say to me well after lunchtime, this is the first time I've been to the bathroom today, or at 4 o'clock, this is the first drink of water I've had today. And so you must make those things the priority. Have a bottle of water in your room. Make sure that you take. We're governed by the bells. This sort of factory structure of schools. Everybody's governed by the bells, and there'll be days when you'll have classes back to back. So just make sure that you do also put your health first, because at the end of the day, if that starts to slip, if you become ill or just exhausted or fatigued, then you're not going to be able to do your job as well, and everything's going to just become more challenging and more of a stress. So I know it sounds very, very obvious, but make sure you go to the toilet, make sure you have a drink of water, and make sure you keep your energy levels up through snacks, etc. I can see Sarah nodding. That resonates with you, does it?
You do forget, though. I never thought that you would ever forget to drink water or go to the toilet, but it can be like lunchtime by the time you've got, I've not gone to the bathroom since 8 o'clock this morning, because you've just been in back-to-back classes. Or break time, you run to get a cup of tea and run back to your room again because you've got another class coming in. So it is something that you really need to watch out for. And I've bought myself a water bottle, and I keep it on the desk and make sure that I drink it throughout the day and go to the bathroom. And I think about that now to make sure I do it.
100% agree. Yeah, because it's actually quite physically demanding if you're on your feet all day. So you do need to make sure that you stay fresh. I suppose something else then that links into that idea of getting the balance right and that self-care is just how you deal with your admin. So just to be a bit more sort of specific with some tips, I feel as a teacher it is essential that you use some sort of diary or calendar, whether that's a paper thing, whether it's a teacher planner, or whether you go online and you use a Google Calendar or iCal or whatever it might be. There'll be so many dates and deadlines getting thrown at you that if you don't start recording those things, then you will sort of miss meetings and deadlines will creep up on you. Do you agree with that, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. I bring my diary everywhere now. I've got a special one for school, and I can't go anywhere without it in case something's coming up. But it really does. There's so many things that happen in school, even within your department, and then whole school things as well on top of that. So you really got to keep everything down. I like the physical diary. I tried the online, sort of keeping it in a calendar and stuff like that, but I didn't like it as much. I prefer to be able to flick through the pages and find stuff a bit easier. But yeah, I'm obsessed with the diary. Have to bring it everywhere.
Yeah, and you quite often see that when you do go to meetings, whether it's working group or departmental meetings, and the first thing people put on their table is their planner and their diary, and then the second thing usually is the bottle of water that's there. I think I probably prefer the electronic system, just that I can set it to give me reminders for things that otherwise they creep up on you. And also, I suppose online, if you choose to, you can create to-do lists. And I know that there are a few sort of widely available software programs that will do that for you and can be quite powerful to-do lists. And maybe even Atul, you have some experience in industry, and perhaps that was the sort of thing that was used through project management. But a to-do list, which I mentioned earlier, I think is an essential part of being a teacher, of trying to keep track of what's going on there. And I would strongly suggest that before you go home from school of an evening, that you make sure that your to-do list is written out and is up to date, because just getting those tasks that you know need to be done onto paper takes them out of your mind. And then, I know, Atul, you mentioned your mind can still be swirling even on a Sunday. If you've written them onto your to-do list, it seems to help you sort of compartmentalize them a little bit. And so I find a to-do list is a powerful thing. But if it goes beyond a page, it's too long. So just don't kid yourself on. You're not going to be able to do 30 odd items a day. Just pick the ones that are going to make the biggest difference, hopefully the ones that are going to make the biggest difference to the students and their learning. But also there are some things on your to-do list that you'll get into trouble if you don't do. So writing reports, going to parents' evenings, etc., that has to happen. But try and always think, is the time that I'm spending on this task the best use of my time? Is it going to be having an impact on the learning and helping to see students make some progress? Because if it's not, then maybe you're picking the wrong things off your to-do list. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. In my case as well, just to give some of my experience, essentially I run a one-on-one tutoring business, so I have to do a lot of admin, which is being in touch with parents, the scheduling, and I'm teaching people in different time zones, so I can't just timetable them in the UK time zone either. So it's it is pretty complex. I started scheduling online because I lost my diary on the London Tube 4 years ago, and my life turned upside down for like a week, and I realized. So yeah, I've moved it to online, but again, things happen and something comes up, you have to reply to an email from a parent or something, and it's really easy to get off track. Like there's a juicy tutor discussion going on that you really want to get involved in, but you've got to be so like single-minded about the to-do list you made and really stick to it. It takes real discipline to do that. But that would be my advice. Just pick the top things that you think are really you want to do and the best use of your time right now, because there's so much stuff that you have to do, juggle simultaneously. In teaching, it's a really complex thing to do. Communication, in my case, communication with parents, communication with tutees, communication. I do all these things with my colleagues online as well, so you'll always be juggling multiple balls, and you have to just figure out what the most optimum use is and stick to it as much as you can.
The last thing I would say on to-do lists, I started to develop a habit of actually using a highlighter just to highlight in pink the real top tasks on the list, the urgent ones, and then orange for the ones that would be great to get done, and then the rest, they're luxuries basically. So even going as far as indicating on your list what the priorities are, so you make sure you don't get drawn in by other tasks. Sometimes it's easy to pick on the easy, sort of simple tasks and not go and I think they talk about eating the frog, tackling some of the big tasks first. But I suppose you develop a personal style on that. But another to-do list, another type of to-do list I feel is your email inbox. which is just become some sort of self-generating to-do list, which you have no real control over. And it's very rarely you get an email that doesn't involve you having to do something or other. And so managing email can be a real challenge, especially if you're maybe used to being always available through your phone, perhaps with other sort of social channels, etc. My advice with email is only open your inbox when you actually have some time to sit there and deal with what might be inside it. Because if you're walking the corridors and you check email on your phone, you're not going to be able to respond, and before you know it, you're back in your classroom and there's a student there, and then you've lost track of it. So I think only open emails when you have time to deal with them would be my advice. What do you think about that, Sarah? Your inbox?
Definitely. I think you can sometimes have a quick look and then you go, oh no, I can't go in there yet. I don't have time for that. But I usually I would go into school maybe a wee bit early, and I like to get my emails that have come in maybe in late afternoon or the day before, and I'll check through those, and then if I've got a free period, then I'll look at it then when I've got proper time to sit down and do it. But yeah, I feel like I can't have a quick glance because there's definitely things in there that you'll need to do, and then I'm always afraid of missing something. So seeing it and going, oh, I'm going to reply to that, and then you get distracted by maybe somebody comes in and needs you, and then I have the fear of then I will miss that. So I just can't. I have to have my set time when I do the emails, and then I go and do my other jobs. Also.
Yeah. Definitely a common sort of theme coming through there. And the other feature that you might have on your inbox is the ability to schedule emails once they've arrived, to perhaps send them off to come back at a later time. I suppose it depends which sort of mail client you're using, but sometimes people are very organised and they'll send you information about an event that's happening in 2 weeks' time into your inbox, and you don't need it then, but you do need it in 2 weeks' time. So if you have the option to schedule emails and snooze them basically so that they go off and then reappear at the top of your inbox at a time that you feel you would need them, then that's something that might work, just to keep the most current stuff at the top of your inbox rather than slipping away down the stream.
I'll have to look into that.
My school uses a Gmail style based system, and so you can snooze the emails in that sense, and that's quite a nice feature to have. But other aspects of admin, obviously photocopying, it might be a thing of the past now that everybody's gone online. We might not need paper again, but I think aspirations of a paperless school are still possibly a little bit off, and so if you do need to make some copying, I'm speaking from experience here, but just don't leave it to the day that you need it. I mean, it's inevitable that the copier will be broken out of paper. There'll be a queue, 15 people long wanting to use it. Never leave your copying until the day that you need it. Always try and get that stuff prepared in advance. Do you agree with that, Sarah, that idea of planning and preparation?
Yes, definitely. Because the one time you need something really important, the printer is always broken, like every single time. So we have a thing at our school called reprographics. I've never really seen that at school for my placements, but you email it all to them and they will do it, and then you go and collect it, which is quite good. But you do have to be definitely on top of your planning, because with those guys, you can't send it just even the day before. I usually give it about a week just to make sure, because if other classes have exams and stuff, they'll get put to the priority. But I think it really does help with your planning and preparation to know, okay, I need that put in by this week so I can get it next week, and you're always on top of yourself then and never really, rushing to get things done. There is sometimes when there's something comes up and it's an emergency and you need to print something which you haven't done. But I do try and keep that to a minimum, because it's always the important day that the printer breaks. So yeah, you can't do much about that.
Well, I think as much as I've learnt about teaching over the last 15 years, it's probably equalled to the amount I've learnt about fixing photocopiers. Pull lever D, turn handle E, remove paper, and there's never any paper in there, and it just becomes a whole carry on. The other, you understand, yeah, absolutely, the paper jams. If you mentioned you've got the facility to send your copying to the reprographics department, maybe it's some secretaries or somebody employed to do that, and we might come back to this later on when we talk about the wider school, but it really is a good idea to be friendly with the people that are doing your copying. It gives you a bit of an advantage in a sense when you do have those last minute jobs. Just a genuine smile, which you should reserve. You should be using it with everybody anyway, but it can be to your advantage to have these people in your close circle of friends. The other thing I was going to say about admin really was report writing, and especially as a new and beginning teacher, reports, I think, and you might not agree, Sarah, but see, reports take longer than you think. No matter how long you reckon these things will take. I know people that write off weekends. That's report deadline coming, all weekend is gone, and these are experienced teachers. Have you had to write reports, Sarah, through your probation year?
I actually had, which I'm really thankful for, in my last placement. I worked with one of my teachers and went through how to write all the reports, how to work CMIS and get all the different boxes to come up at the right time and stuff like that. So I had a wee bit of experience, which was great, because I think it must have been just after October, we were already putting reports out in my probation year. So that was a lot, and especially because if I hadn't seen it before, I wouldn't have known how to open all the stuff and find where all the stuff is, on top of then having to just write all the reports as well, which takes a lot of time. But yeah, reports are definitely a headache when they come around.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I don't feel bad about copy and pasting. I think it's okay to use some standard comments, so long as they they do apply to the student that you're writing about. Just make sure you don't make the he, she, her and him mistake. So I suppose proofreading the reports is important, and also just learning the two different spellings of practice, which I think is one of the most common mistakes that teachers can make: practice with a C and practice with an S. And the last thing on that I was going to say was that although Word has its sort of built-in spell check and grammar check seems to be coming through there, Google Docs Online does the same. I use a plugin. I don't know, Atul, if we can advertise any particular brand here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Grammarly is certainly a sort of extension that I find is very powerful, and I think it's improved my writing significantly. I certainly use a lot more punctuation than ever before. So something like Grammarly, just to keep on top of any documents that you're writing, might be a nice idea.
Yeah, I've got that on my computer as well. It's really handy.
Yeah, I should get it. I have no problem with any commercial plugs or whatever. I have no interest. I'm a free agent, so plug away.
Hopefully we find we've now all got free pro subscriptions to Grammarly. There is, of course, a free basics package that you can get for nothing, of course. So I was thinking now maybe a little bit about your actual classroom, if you're lucky enough to have one, and many probationer teachers or NQTs may find that they're peripatetic and have to scurry from room to room, and that's a challenge for anybody, regardless of experience. But if you do manage to have a room that you can call your base, then I think there are some things to think about when you're trying to sort of set that up. And I'll maybe come up with a few suggestions, and Sarah, you can maybe think if there's anything you could add. Just before I do though, do you have a room that you can call your own, Sarah?
Yeah, I do, thankfully. I know some of my friends don't down near the central belt, but yeah, I've got my own, thankfully, which is great.
So generally, just in terms of sort of the physical layout, I think it really is up to you. Unless there's a school or department policy on how the tables are set, you might want to experiment with different things, whether you want groups or rows or groups of two, or however you want to do horseshoes. There was an interesting conversation on Twitter maybe 9 or so months ago with a colleague of mine, just different people's take on how they want to configure their room. So by all means, I think feel free to experiment with the layout and find something that works for you. The most important thing is that the students can all see you and the board and what matters without having to twist or turn. And I find that ideally you don't want to have too many of them in direct line of sight of one another, because there's just an unwanted distraction there really when you're looking for them to focus on the work of the lesson, and perhaps their attention has been drawn elsewhere. So just sort of factoring that in. But the number one piece of advice I think I always try and give to anybody who's coming into teaching, having their own classroom, is just have a box of tissues available. One, so you can have a good cry at a break time, but more because children seem to need tissues for all sorts of things. Usually snotty noses, but you'll get a bleeding nose, you'll get the pen that's burst, or the water, I've spilt my water. So definitely keep an ongoing supply of tissues. And I think also a secret chocolate stash, to be honest, something that you can have locked away in a drawer that you can nibble on just to give yourself that extra maybe sugar rush or a little bit of energy. Do those sort of things resonate, Sarah?
Yeah, I've got I think a 3 stack of tissues in my room. Someone said to me, "Oh, you always have them, just they're handy." And I've gone through so many. There's always a pen that's exploded, or you're right, like someone spilled their water, or a nosebleed. So many unexpected things, and you just go through them so often. So I definitely think tissues is a necessary thing. And the chocolate in the drawer, I like that idea. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, and remember, it needs to be a secret chocolate stash, because otherwise you'll have a queue of colleagues at interval appearing at your door with some sort of vague effort at conversation, but really they just want the chocolate biscuit, don't they? Something that I think that all teachers should probably ask themselves from time to time is are you the hardest working person in the room? And I think quite often we probably are guilty of just wanting to see success for our students and just putting so much energy into that, and then before you know it, you get to the end of a long day and you're slumped on your seat because you are physically exhausted. So the reality is that the students are there to work, and they should be the hardest working person in the room, and if that balance is tipped the other way, then maybe you need to think to yourself, why is this? What am I doing that's taking all my energy, and how could I be sort of planning and preparing and just working in a maybe a different way to bring them in and make them do more work. I think a nice phrase was get them to do the heavy lifting, which I think I like to sort of keep going in my mind. Maybe it's Graham Nuttall's book, The Hidden Lives of Learners, but John Hattie often talks about this quote or this phrase. By the age of 10 or 11, most students have learnt that their job in school is to come in, sit down and watch the teacher work. And so I think we want to just have that in the back of our mind. We have got our qualifications, we've gone through school, we've done our hard work, and that's maybe important just to reflect on that point as much as you can. And then maybe to sort of bolster that, the idea of routine for me is something that's very powerful. I think that the children in school, they do like to know what's expected. They do like structure, and they do like a routine, because without that, then things become unpredictable, and the atmosphere can change, and it depends on who you have in your class. But if you don't have a routine, then there's downtime, and if there's downtime, that equals danger time. Essentially, somebody's going to muck about with something. So routines such as standing in the corridor between lessons, even though you might want to sit and do a quick email, I think that your time is actually better spent standing at your door, even if you don't have a class coming in, and just saying hello to some students as they go past, and just having a presence, and just sort of reminding them that this is a school, and this is how we operate, and we don't carry on in the corridors and all of that sort of stuff. And if you do have a class coming in, I think greeting them at the door is such a powerful thing to do. And I say that just genuinely because I really enjoy doing that. I really enjoy saying, hi Sarah, it's good to see you again. I hope you're ready for maths today. Atul, I hope you've done your homework this time. I'm sure you have. And there's some work on the board, or there's something on the desk. If you go down that idea of starters or settlers or whatever you do at the beginning of the lesson, and just have that routine so that the children know what to expect. And then when you are changing phases in your lesson, so let's say you've gone from a bit of sort of explicit instruction, and you want to move to maybe using dry whiteboards or show me boards or something like that, then think about how to manage that system so that there's no dip, that there's no chances for downtime, like I said, and things to maybe move away from your sphere of control. So even if that is having the boards, distributed whilst you're still explaining the task that's coming, or perhaps something that I found good was actually using heavy-duty plastic wallets and velcroing them to the front of every desk, and you've got pens and dry white and show me boards, etc., already there, so you can move to kind of whole class feedback in just a few seconds. Things like that, just to keep the flow going. I know you're nodding a little bit there, Sarah. Do you agree with that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. We now do as a whole school thing is the meeting and greeting at the door for all the lessons, and we noticed a really big change in just the atmosphere and in the corridors. And then the kids, when they come in, they're just a lot more settled because they've transferred from one class to the other, seeing teachers in the corridor the whole way there. They're not getting hyped up and excited. It's a nicer, calmer atmosphere. So we've really noticed that that's really good. So we're always at the door for leaving and starting classes as well, which is really good. And definitely the downtime, that really terrified me at the start. I was like, they just can't, things will just go pear-shaped if there's any sort of time that they are just sitting there. And it so quickly can change. And I feel like if you've just, I'd say over-planned, but if you've just planned everything to a T, then everything goes so much smoother. No one's getting shouted at them because they're throwing a rubber because they're bored because you've left them for 5 minutes to hand things out. And I just think the atmosphere in the classroom is definitely a lot more settled and focused, and everything runs very smoothly then, most of the time.
Yeah, and that does take a bit of experience, and you probably do have to make some mistakes. So long as if you do something that just doesn't work, then rethink it and say, well, how could I have made that better, more efficient? I'm not a big fan of having students hand things out, to be honest. I find that's just an opportunity for chat and socializing. So something that I think is helpful, if you're taking books in for marking or whatever purpose, then it's not a bad idea to take them in kind of in the order that you walk along the room. So maybe the front row, then the second row, then the third row. And then if you keep them in that order, then it's very easy to give them back out rather than standing in the middle of the room and, throwing books to the back corner and, and where's John and etc. So even things like that, even having pupils have the book open at the page of the homework so that you collect them in already open. We're talking marginal gains here, but all those little things can certainly add up and can help with the routine. So I don't know, Sarah, have you any other tips on just the classroom in general and setting it up, managing it? We'll talk about discipline itself, I think, later.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the things that really helped me at the start, especially coming into a new school, was making sure you have your seating plan. And I'd set them all up. Usually, it was after speaking to other teachers in the department, I would usually just put them alphabetical to start, and then you get to know their names a lot quicker, unless you're told, like these two, don't put them beside each other because that'll just be chaotic. I usually keep them in alphabetical for a while and see how that goes. But I felt like that really helped me, because if I needed to ask a child a question, I can just quickly look at my plan if I haven't got their names yet. And that really helped me at the start as well, just to keep things running smoothly. And the kids also, I think, you don't want to say to a child, oh, sorry, what's your name again? Or, who are you, when you want to ask a question. So I think knowing in their seating plan really helped me at the start.
Excellent advice. The seating plan thing, for so many reasons, I think that's a powerful tool, because it sort of states right from the outset that this is my classroom. I'm the one who calls the shots here. You're not going to choose where you want to sit, and just gives across that tone of authority, I suppose. Plus, immediately gives you the names to refer to. The other thing I was going to say there, you mentioned, seating them alphabetically, unless maybe somebody had said, those two don't work well together. And I suppose that also leads on to pupils who maybe have additional support needs, and just making sure that before you start with a class, you're fully aware of all of those different needs and requirements, and somebody may need to sit at the front because of eyesight or hearing, all sorts of reasons. So definitely worth factoring all that in and looking on the school sort of information management system and getting that information. I believe that that sort of SEN provision across schools is better, now than it's ever been, and we've got some really knowledgeable colleagues working in that sector with a lot of good advice, and so don't be afraid to go to them and say, I'm really struggling to get such and such to concentrate or to focus. Do you have any tips? And they'll be able to give you tips that other teachers have used, and I think that's an important thing just to remember in that sense. But you're definitely right about the names, and so last year, I think, and at the start of this session and the start of the previous session, I set myself the challenge of learning every student's name within the first week. And that's not easy when you've got a memory that seems to be like mine. It's sort of decaying with age, but repetition and retrieval is a powerful thing. And so I did it, and it was so great to be able, by the end of the first week, to know them by their name and to call them by their name. It takes a lot of effort on your part, but immediately you've started to build up the bonds and the relationships, which I think is a very powerful thing. So we talked about the classroom there, but then maybe we can move to the wider school and just sort of your involvement, expectations in the whole school. We've already mentioned a few times, and Sarah, you said that you felt very welcome at your school where you did your probation and where you currently are. Not all schools have staff rooms anymore. Sometimes maybe it's just departmental basis, but I think it is important to go along, especially as a new teacher, and get your face seen and chat to some people, and you'll get all different points of view. You'll have every angle covered by the colleagues in the classroom in terms of their thoughts on teaching, depending on where they are and where their head's at. But definitely worth to be able to go and do that. I'm really not very good at doing that. I've often been told I need to spend more time in the staff room. I'm trying to get better at that, and more time with colleagues. I tend to just bury my head in work and just work through. But I know I need to be better than that, because we are a team and we need to know one another and get to know our sort of strengths and weaknesses. Is that something that sounds right, Sarah?
Yeah, in our school currently we have the subject bases, and then we have a larger staff room. And some of the smaller subjects don't have their own base, so they'll go there. But there's voluntary weekly meetings for the whole school, which is really nice, in the main staff room. So you get to go and see people that you're never really going to bump into in your own department, or you've no real connection with their department, so you never really see each other. And so I definitely would say going along to the main staff room, even if you just choose like one day a week, and go and speak to some people there that you wouldn't see on a usual teaching day. But yeah, I think getting to know different people from different departments is really important. You maybe make friends with people that you wouldn't have met outside anyway, so it's definitely important.
Mm-hmm. And if there's a club, staff badminton club or five-a-side football or something, then it's worth going along, and it's great just to be able to bounce troubles off one another, to be honest. And the old saying, isn't it? That's problem shared. Mm-hmm. You probably have quite a lot of expectations placed. I know that this coming session is going to be probably one of the most challenging for schools, certainly in my career. And there's going to be plenty of difficult times and lots of decisions to be made, and perhaps changes and upheaval. And you will still have some expectations placed on you in terms of showing enthusiasm for the whole school and some of the initiatives. And so there may well be some working groups that you get invited to join. And I would say definitely do that. But I would also say one working group is enough. Schools are keen to involve probationers and NQTs and all sorts of things, but don't overcommit, especially in your first year, because you'll be busy enough. I can see a wry smile Sarah's face there. Tell me, are you 5 working groups?
No, 2, but I chair one of them, and I didn't want to not do it. We just went to the day, you picked which one you want to go to, and it ended up with me, 3 other probationers, and a few older teachers, but they had other roles like guidance and senior management and stuff. So then we were told, so anybody want to be the chair? And everyone was looking around, and I was like, no, I don't want to be the chair. And it's not that I didn't want to. It just was so out of my comfort zone that I was just like, oh, I really don't want to do it. And then they all kept looking at me and smiling. And then I was like, oh, I'll do it. And then they were all like so happy. And then I was like, I don't really know if I want to do it. But now that I've done it for the year, I have actually really enjoyed it. And it was definitely out of my comfort zone. But having to mix with all the other teachers and different like management levels and doing stuff that I've never done before was really helpful. But then my other group that I'm in, I sort of didn't have a lot of time for that. So I was sort of in and out with that one and not really giving it my full time and attention. So I would definitely say one group is enough, especially if you got coerced into chairing one of them. Don't do another one as well.
Yeah, and if you are chairing it, make sure you delegate somebody else to write the minutes. And live minute writing, I think, is the key. You know, make sure you've got a device there. Write the minutes live, because you just, again, don't have time to go back and make sense of your scribblings. In addition to, you know, looking at maybe being in a working group and maybe trying to join some sort of staff group, is obviously the extracurricular side of the school, or the co-curricular, depending. I don't know, Sarah, have you managed to get involved with anything sort of outside of the classroom?
Yeah, I help run the netball club with a teacher. She was an NQT, I think, last year or the year before. So she had got into it with another teacher. That other teacher left, so I was like, I'll come along and help. Although I'm not very good at netball. I don't really know the rules either, but it's really good to see the kids outside the classroom, especially ones that can be seen as maybe a little bit difficult within the classroom. You like build quite a good relationship with them when you're at the netball training, and it's a bit of fun, and you bring them to other schools and play matches and stuff like that. So you definitely see a different side of them. And then when you're back in the classroom, that relationship's a lot stronger. So I think things tend to go a lot smoother from then on. So I would definitely recommend joining in with one of the extracurricular. And I found it quite easy because I was doing it with that other teacher. So I didn't have the full responsibility of the club myself. We're able to work together. So that really helped as well.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, I can give you an example of what happens when you don't have a staff room, because that's what I do as a sort of a solitary tutor existence. Coming from industry where you do have mentors, or you have you have a very rich network, especially in engineering, and it's a very, very lonely existence actually. And because teaching is so complex, there's so many things happening in your head. You need to air these things to someone, to people who've been doing this for a while, who are more experienced, and just get it out of your head and get that kind of advice. Mm-hmm. And for me, just kind of thinking beyond the classroom, staff room, but we've got these really, maths is one of the most CPD type subjects in the UK. We've got very, very rich networks beyond the school, where we have CPD training, we have meetups, we have conferences. So for me, that's become where I find my colleagues. Social media is to an extent where I find my colleagues, but yeah, it's just if you really value that, like what you have there, because if you don't have it, it's really difficult. I can tell you from my personal experience.
Yeah, definitely. Again, that idea of community, not just across the staff, but then with the pupils as well. It's a powerful thing that schools have. And schools that have got that right are really great places with wonderful atmospheres, supportive, optimistic, positive atmospheres. So contribute to that in whatever small way you can. Like Sarah says, you don't need to know the rules of netball, but just go along and join in. I suppose the other thing is, and something I didn't expect when I came into teaching, was just the level of talent that some of the students will have in various different disciplines, whether it's singing, dancing, music, art, whatever it might be. And so if there's an opportunity to go to any school event, if they're putting on shows or concerts or anything like that, I would thoroughly recommend that you take that. Again, just another chance for you to see the students in a different light maybe, and you might find there's something there that you have in common that you would never have known about before. And all of those things really help building the relationships, which actually relationship building with students is not really something we've spoken about enormously so far, but it is really the linchpin of the whole thing. You know, you don't have to be super strict, authoritarian. You need to be fair, firm, consistent, but it is okay to say hello and to talk to them, and it is actually all right to smile and show that you're a human being at the same time. I mean, I think we're probably edging naturally towards that sort of conversation around discipline anyway. So you happy enough to sort of move towards that, Sarah?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know much about the demographic of the school that you're at, and obviously different schools can be challenging in all sorts of different ways. How have you felt that the idea of discipline, of managing the room and dealing with disruption, etc.? How has that gone for you in your first year?
It's definitely, or it was definitely, one of the most daunting things about teaching that I have had. The worry that things would just all unravel when you're in this room and it's you and 30 maybe plus kids and they just don't listen to what you're saying is one of the things I was most worried about. But it definitely has not gone as bad as that, so, which is quite good. In our school, they've got an SIMD that goes all the way from 1 to 10, so it's a big range of people, and there's like 1,200 students as well, so it's quite a big school. So there's definitely a lot of challenges, but I would say that the relationships you build with the kids is key to the discipline. And I don't know if it's maybe in all schools, but definitely in the school that I'm in. If you go in, well, we were told on one of our first days, don't go in like a bull in a china shop because they'll just give it right back to you. And it's completely true. Like if they think that you're being unfair in any way, they just say it straight. They're just like, you're just being unfair and you're being so and so, and then you just have to be like, yeah, I'm just in a bad mood, or something's happened, or I'm not being completely fair. But yeah, you just get called out for it in the school. So you really do have to build a relationship with them so that your classroom does run well and everything runs smoothly. Because they are really respectful as long as you give them the respect as well, and they will give it back. But you can't go in like a bull in a china shop at all.
I think that's good advice, Sarah. Absolutely. I certainly remember maybe year two of teaching, perhaps, and particularly challenging class, and quite a tough school again, deprived area, and the student wasn't doing anything really that I wanted, and so I thought I'll have a go at shouting. Let's have a go at shouting. I've seen other teachers shouting, that'll do. And calm as you like, she just looked back in my face and said, "Look, sir, there's no need to shout." And I just thought, I've got nothing here. I'm rubbish. You're absolutely right. So I think that was probably the last time I tried shouting. I don't believe that's necessary. But what I think is necessary, and this is really important for all teachers, especially beginning teachers, is to be really clear in your head what is and what isn't acceptable in your room, and that can be hard because sometimes you don't even know what's going to happen. There'll be unpredictable events that you're going to have to improvise on your feet. But if you don't like it, do something about it, really, because I think that the phrase that goes around is what you permit, you promote. So if you let somebody away with throwing a rubber across the room, then the rest of the room now have carte blanche to throw rubbers around the room, and so I think that's really clear, really important to be clear in your head what is acceptable and what isn't. Now, obviously, the schools will have a discipline procedure, and there'll be some sort of standard ladder of sanctions, which is probably first warning, second warning, moving seat, time out in the corridor, whatever comes next, referral to head of department, whatever it might be. And by all means, use that structure, but make sure that you've shared those expectations first with the class. It's almost not fair to sort of say, right, that's it, you're getting sent to the head of the department because you've dropped a sweetie wrapper or whatever. You need to make it clear what is and isn't acceptable and what the sanctions will be, and then you have to carry it out. That idea of being fair and being consistent. You don't want to be the teacher that says this is your last chance and then say that 10 times to them. If you say that, you mean that. and students will quickly learn that you are clear in your head about what you accept and what you don't accept. One thing that you kind of touched upon, Sarah, I think a little bit is this idea of picking your battles. So sometimes it's not the wisest idea to engage in a big sort of discipline issue right in the middle of your lesson. And actually you might be better parking that in your mind and maybe just asking the pupil to stay back at the end and have a sort of quiet one-to-one conversation. Some students don't respond that well to being called out in front of the rest of the class, and so just being a little bit tactful and diplomatic. But in the same breath, I would also say don't enter into negotiations. You are the adult here. This isn't a sort of bartering where they can try and get off with a sort of lighter sentence because they say the right thing. If they're wrong and there's a consequence, then you have to try and follow that through. So issue those sanctions, but you have to be certain. And I've met many colleagues who have fallen foul of this because you're pretty sure that pencil that was thrown came from Thomas up at the back, but if you didn't see it, then you can't collar him for it. The only thing you can hope for maybe is an admission of guilt, but if you don't see it, then you can't follow through with that. And so something that has worked for me is if you suspect somebody's misbehaving, don't call it out straight away. Just keep a casual eye on that sort of section of the room, and then it's more than likely they'll do it again. And then you can feel fully justified and confident because you've caught them red-handed, you sat and watched them doing it, and then you can go through that procedure. What do you think about those tips, Sarah? Does that sound helpful? Anything you would add?
One of the things I found as well was not making a big deal of it in front of the class is very good, because the child will usually try and win, and then you get into this sort of like, no, I'm right and you're wrong kind of situation with them, and they will maybe be acting up because their friends are in the room. So I do try to keep my emotions out of the situation and just quietly say to them, like, stay behind after, or that behaviour isn't acceptable, you need to stay behind after class to talk about it. And then try and get back as quickly as you can to the lesson to keep it focused on learning, because you can see if you get into this big debate with a child about who threw the pencil, the other kids at the side of the room are rolling their eyes, bored, and then one of them will start acting up because they're thinking, well, he's getting all the attention or she's getting all the attention because they're acting up, so I'm going to act up, and it just turns into this big chaotic situation. So I do try, and I say try because it's not always, I do try to stay calm and just quietly speak to the person, whatever is going on with, and then get back to the lesson so they know that the focus of the lesson is going to be learning to some extent. So that's my tip, is try and keep it as calm as possible when you can.
That's good advice. That is good advice. And I suppose we've talked a little bit here about the sort of the bad things that might happen and dealing with those situations when they arise. But obviously, you can be a bit proactive instead, and make a point of catching students being good. That phrase of sort of praising the behaviours that you'd like to see, because I've found over my career that students do like a bit of genuine sort of praise. And if you've got somebody that's chatting and not concentrating, maybe Atul at the back there is not really attending to his work, but Sarah's sitting next to him, I would be saying, Sarah, I'm loving the focus there. You're really concentrating hard and you're making great progress. Well done. And Atul hears that and says, oh, hold on, she's getting that praise. I haven't called him out. I haven't said you need to work harder. But the idea of catching them being good and using that as a sort of positive reinforcement tool, I think it can be quite powerful if you use that wisely. And the other phrase that I've heard a few times, my friend Graham Robertson's a big fan of saying it, is this idea of unconditional positive regard. They're going to make mistakes. Students will make mistakes and let you down sometimes, but they are children. They are learning. And that is how we learn, is by trying things and deciding if it's going to work, is this the right thing or not. And so don't hold grudges, start every day with a clean slate, really, but make sure that you're fair and you're consistent. And that idea of not necessarily killing them with kindness, but just always having a smile always being optimistic, even when you feel maybe rock bottom yourself, because that your influence on the climate of the classroom is huge. So you're there to sort of set the tone and create the weather, so to speak. Now, Atul, I know we're 9:15. How are we doing?
Yeah, we're good to go for a little while if you want. Well, obviously it's 1 hour later for you, so it's fairly late for you. But yeah, we're good to go for a little while. We can just kind of wind things down very gently. But there's Twitter going on, so there's if you got any questions, just put them forward, and yeah, we can deal with that. The recording will be there as well. So we've had one person ask if it's live right now, but you can obviously see the recording. Go back and look at all the topics we discussed here.
Yeah, no, perfect. And yeah, I can tell the time. Maths teacher for 15 years. It's just the fact of being in a different time zone. The sun is just setting here in Spain. Where will we access the recording, Atul?
It'll just be on my Twitter timeline, actually. Literally just go on my timeline and you can bookmark that particular recording. It'll be obviously still remain on my timeline, and I save a copy on my YouTube channel as well, so I'll just send you both a URL, and you can share with your colleagues, your department, with anyone, and it's yeah, it'll just be there, that same link on YouTube and on my Twitter. Things get lost in Twitter, obviously it gets out of date, but it's still there, so all you have to do is just have the bookmark or YouTube link, and it's yeah, it's a really valuable bit of CPD in itself. It's one of the advantages of doing these things online. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, on the topic there of CPD, that is also something that new student teachers, probationary teachers, NQTs will be expected to get involved in to some extent. But it's important to acknowledge, and hopefully it's reassuring, that you're not expected to know everything at the start. I always use this analogy of standing up in front of the classroom for the first time there to take a lesson is a little bit like being placed in the seat of a jumbo jet airplane and being told to fly it with only very basic training. It's such a complicated system that 15 years into it, I'm still figuring out what different switches do and different levers do. So don't feel that you're expected to know everything. And I imagine most people who will be watching this will be involved in Twitter to some extent. And I go into Twitter, and sometimes I find great resources and ideas, and sometimes I come away feeling a bit demoralised because it feels like so many people are way ahead of me and are so much more knowledgeable than I am. But you have to remember that's what you're seeing there through Twitter is quite often somebody's the best work that they can produce. They've spent a lot of time on this and they're experts in these particular areas. So don't be intimidated by that. It's a long journey, and you'll develop strengths in different areas over time. But Twitter is a great place to try and get resources. You don't have to reinvent everything, and getting involved with the maths scene on Twitter. Every now and then I see sections of Twitter that people don't enjoy as much, but I do feel that the maths community is a really positive community where it's really great to be involved in that. And you don't have to post prolifically. I don't post that much, but you can lurk around in the shadows and just gather information and see what people are doing and what people are saying. And it's a great source of CPD. And you'll find different areas that you want to specialise in and to learn more about. And it's important to try and take advantage of those things. I know, Mark, you mentioned, Atul, you mentioned some of the CPD you've done with LaSalle and Complete Maths, which has been some of the best CPD I've been involved in over the years. I don't know if Sarah, how is your CPD portfolio looking this year?
It's actually quite good, I must say so myself. I really enjoy CPD, so I love Twitter. I'm a lurker on Twitter where I don't post a lot, but I go on it, but sometimes end up in what I call a Twitter hole. So you're scrolling through so much stuff and it does become a wee bit overwhelming, and you see all these things and you're like, I don't do any of that. Like, am I meant to be doing all of this at one go? And you can get a wee bit overwhelmed, but I do try to remember, like, this is people's best work, and it is just one little snippet of what's going on. but it's definitely a great place to even meet people and see who other people are following, or sort of different tips that people are giving each other. So I definitely think Twitter's a good one. And I also am obsessed with Craig Barton's podcast and the amount of stuff I've found out through that. So definitely recommend listening to him, because there's just and it's quite a big range of topics. It's not just one person who likes a certain type of teaching or a certain method. So there is a wide range of stuff on there, which I think is quite good, and good links to different things. But yeah, I'm very into the CPD. A lot of books have been read.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Craig Barton, and I'm inspired by that idea to do this kind of thing. And this, I've learned a lot from, as Mark McCourt says from LaSalle, that you're always on. You're never expert at teaching. You're just on a continuum. You just become. It'd be a sad day if you said, "Well, I now know everything about teaching," and well, that's teaching done. And we're all learning, so we're all on this journey, and no question is silly. It's ask everyone else has that kind of question. It's one of the things I ask my tutees when they get this one-on-one space. I just say, ask the silliest question, because pretty much everyone else will have that question, or they'll be thinking about it. So ask those questions in the classroom as well. So I encourage them not to be completely dependent on me, and try to make them a really good learner in the classroom first and foremost. Make the most of that. And Twitter is a great resource for that. And my contribution at the moment is bring more nuance to it, because you can only do so much in a bunch of 140 character tweets or photographs. But Twitter is a place where you can find resources, go to different blogs. If you have the time, you can set up on your own blog. I found blogging is never mind who reads it, but the fact that I have to condense my thoughts about a particular aspect of teaching is in of itself an invaluable process. And then once I've committed it to being published, that's much like a teacher. Like I'm putting it out there. That makes me think really hard of how to articulate the best way I can. And it's never perfect. Sometimes it's wrong, but it gets a conversation started. And your contribution might just be getting a conversation started, just asking a question. So you may feel like you don't have something that you can add to an existing conversation, or a really good resource or a good website, but you can ask a question, and everyone else has, oh, this is a great question, I want to pitch in what I think. So yeah, just keep talking. I think that's the best piece of advice from my side as well. Yeah.
So we did have a question on through Twitter just when you announced we were doing this session, and maybe it's a good point to stop after this, because it was a great question. I can't find it now in the stream, but thank you to whoever it was that asked, and it was really just some advice for that first week, getting into your new school, and that first week. And I think we could maybe also include the days of in-service just before the students arrive, because I imagine all schools have 2 or 3 days of in-service at the end of the summer holiday, and then you sort of hit the first week. And we've covered a few things, talking about seating plans and routines and things. But Sarah, is there anything from your perspective that you did that worked, or that you wish you did differently, sort of that very first week, and maybe the couple of days just in service before that?
Yeah, well, our first 2 days of in-service, if I remember correctly, were quite structured. So we had different talks on different things, which was quite good, because it gave you a wide range of what was going on in the school. But then I remember on the first day when I was meant to go in and start teaching, they were like, okay, off you go. And I was like, wait, am I just going to go in now and start? Is this what happens? But I definitely think that talking to the people in your department, just through like how they start their lessons, what they do, what the kids are used to as well, knowing where to find everything on your computer and pinning it to the place that you want it to be. So when you go and try and look for it, it is there where you think it's going to be. I definitely remember staying behind school on my 2 inset days and just testing out the boards as well. So I've got a roller board and a interactive whiteboard, and I just practiced writing on them just to make sure I knew where everything was, and almost like thought about what my lesson was going to be like. So my first lesson, what I was going to say to the kids when I came in, how I was going to get everything open on the computer and just make sure everything was fine. maybe over planning a little bit, but I just, once I know how everything goes, and I'm like, I can relax now because I know what I think is going to happen, and I know where to find everything, and just making sure you were very prepared, especially in that first week, because it can be very an anxious time. And if you know where everything is, you're less likely to get stressed, especially in a classroom situation. And knowing, especially like, there's different routines for different schools, but if a child has to go to the bathroom, do you need to write them a slip? Do you have those slips in your drawer? Are they all cut out, or are you going to have to start looking for them or asking another teacher? So just asking little questions like that to your colleagues, things they will be able to think about anymore because they've been there for so long. But routines like that for bathroom slips or medical slips, stuff like that as well. I didn't ask anything about medical, and then a child asked me a lesson, can I go to see the nurse? And then it was a first year, and I said, yeah, let me see what I have to do. And then she said, do you know where the nurse's office is? And I was like, no. So I had to go and find the nurse's office and see where that was. So just small little things that sort of slip your mind. Definitely ask colleagues just to help you out with that before your first lesson, not mid-lesson like me.
I think that is all really excellent advice. I don't have much more to add to that. The only thing that I might say is that again, you don't have to have all the bells and whistles going in from your very first lesson. You might even find if you've got a little bit of freedom there that you can do maybe a slightly different task with a class rather than just sort of straight into what might be sort of called a more of a standard lesson. You might be able to do some investigative thing or some sort of open-ended task that actually just says, I value thinking in this room and maybe just conjecturing and rather than what they might expect, which could just be, here's a couple of examples now, go for your textbook. And if you do use a task like that, then there's no harm in using it with another class as well. So maybe lighten your burden a little bit in that first week, and you can reuse tasks as long as they're low floor, high ceiling type tasks that everybody can access, but can also be extended on a bit. Then that's something that you can maybe fall back on either in that first week or even if there's a particularly busy week where you've got maybe reports and deadlines, parents' evenings, etc. That it's okay to take some time out to do that type of sort of task, and it should really be part of practice anyway and built into that curriculum. But sometimes it's quite nice to start the year in that mode and maybe not go to the pen and paper quite straight away. So I think what you said, Sarah, and the points there, hopefully that's given everyone that's been listening and watching some food for thought. I think we've covered a lot of ground there and some really good tips. You don't have to be a complete teacher. When you start after year one, after year two, I think the most important thing is that by the time you've done 20 odd years of teaching, that you've managed to get 20 years of experience and not just 1 year repeated 20 times. So you'll get better and better, and there'll be bad times and there'll be good times. But so long as the general trend is improvement, then you're doing the right thing. So I suppose I just would wish the best of luck to everybody that's come into teaching. It's a hard job, no doubt about it. And scores of parents across the world have now realised, having to homeschool their children, how hard it is sometimes to teach, and in many cases they're only 1-to-1 and not 1-to-30. But it's a tough job, but it's a really rewarding job, and I hope you feel you made the right decision. Sarah, I'll give you the last word on that. Has this been a good thing for you?
It really has. There are definitely times when you think, oh, am I even doing this right? Is everything going the way it should be? But when you have one of those days and everything goes well and you come home and you think, oh, that was a really good day, or I really enjoyed myself, or you've really made a connection with a child you've had trouble with before, those kind of days just make it all worth it. And you think, oh, I actually do want to do this. This is the job I'm going to do. So yeah, definitely stick at it because it is worth it in the end.
Fantastic.
Sounds great. Yeah, we just had a couple of comments on Facebook and Twitter, I think. Angela is just saying, yeah, great chat, and I'm sure it'll be of help to many teachers. Best of luck in the classroom. So, and we've got Shivanand from India tuned in. So, yeah. best wishes. Yeah, all teachers in different parts of the country. So we're all there's a support network behind you. You're never alone.
Fantastic. Perfect. Great. Well, thank you, Sarah, for taking the time to join us, and Atul for making this possible tonight. As I say, I hope that we've been able to offer some words of wisdom and some advice. You can reach all three of us on Twitter. I think just Atul's tweets have got our Twitter handles in there. So if anyone has any other questions, anything that comes up, I'm happy to answer them on that forum.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, fantastic, and yeah, thanks both of you for going through with this, taking your time out. I know it's a very busy time for everyone personally and professionally. So for the greater good of our colleagues in the teaching community, not just in Scotland and in England and the UK, all over the world, we have many people tuning into Twitter all the time, and this is all out there in the public. Brilliant. So I'm just gonna stop our live stream and we'll just have a very quick chat and debrief, and we can wrap it up from there. So I'll stop streaming.